He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Welcome to Son Coaches Podcast, and today I've got a special guest with us. He is one of the best guys in the business. If you've ever met him or talked to him, you can attest to that. Never heard anything say anything sideways about him. He's currently the head football coach at Whitewater High School. Coach Coach Frazier, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Chris. Yes, thanks for having me on, man. It's an honor.
Well, Coach, tell us about where you grew up and where you went to school and just how you got started.
Sure. Went to Central of Macon. Used to be old Lanier, and but I went to Central of Macon. I'm a Charger. Tom Simonson was our head coach. He's written a couple of books on the 4-4 defense, and we were split back there. And that was back during a time where you had to turn around and play. You had a region playoff. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. But we had a region playoff. So it seemed like every year we'd have to turn around and play one of Robbins or maybe a Southwest Macon just to get into the state playoffs.
When they only took two.
And they only took two. Yeah. And so my junior year was probably our best year. We were 9-3. That was the only year we actually qualified for the state playoffs. But played baseball, wrestled, and football in high school, and wasn't really good at any of them. Of course, in my mind, I was a lot better than I really was. But fairly smart, I guess. Maybe also in my mind. But didn't really capitalize on that too much. I got accepted to Georgetown, because I thought that I might want to be like an international relations guy, politics or something. And then moved that summer after graduating, moved to Pensacola. I thought I wanted to live at the beach. So made no plans to go to school. Just headed south and went to the beach and got a job, and realized quickly that that wasn't for me. Like, I figured, okay, you better get your butt back in school so you can do something. And then so I enrolled at Macon College, which is Middle Georgia State now, but it was a 2-year school back then. And
what year was that?
This was 1991.
Okay,
I graduated.
You're a year ahead of me.
Okay, yeah. So I went to Macon College in 1991 because I didn't make any plans to do anything or go anywhere else. And the first class on the first day, the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen walked in. And one of my buddies is sitting next to me, one of my high school buddies, and I smacked him and I said, "There's the woman I'm going to marry." And this June will be 28 years that we've been married, she and I. So
that's awesome. That worked out.
That worked out pretty good. She had a boyfriend at the time, but but we worked through that, and I tricked her into marrying me. So
yeah, considering they get to pick, that did work out pretty good.
That's exactly right. They do get to pick. But,
I remind mine that all the time. When she gets mad, I'm like, "Well, you got to pick. You said yes."
Well, the reason I bring that up is when I actually started school at Macon College, I was a pre-pharmacy major. My plans were to go to school there and then transfer to Mercer and go to pharmacy school in Mercer, and taking classes and everything. And her daddy was a football coach, high school football coach. He was at Perry High School. He had been the head coach at Irwin County, Atkinson County, started the program at McIntosh County Academy. So we would go to the games, the home games at Perry on Friday nights. And then, before we get dinner or something like that. And he'd invite me to come down on the sideline, and it was just a different, it was just a different point of view than it was when you played. And it didn't take me long, Chris, to figure out that's what I wanted to do. I'd always played, multiple sports. My mom was great about putting me in everything. I mean, I did chorus, band, tennis, swimming, everything. I wasn't one of those, I'm going to specialize in a sport. So when I stood on the sidelines and watched him do what he did, and then remembering, what sports did for me growing up, I realized that, I think this would be fun. So I changed my major, went into education, and got into coaching. She transferred to Georgia Southwestern down in Americas, and I transferred. I followed her down there. Ended up walking on baseball team for a couple of years, and then I went through. I had testicular cancer, so I went through a couple of major surgeries dealing with that, and then your mentality, your mindset when you go through a major life, challenge like that, just kind of had us thinking. So she and I both moved down to Valdosta, and we both went to Valdosta State, and that's where I ended up finishing up. And then we got married down there in Valdosta while we were still in school. But it was neat because Valdosta, her dad got me hooked up with Milt Miller, and I know Coach Miller.
Oh, yeah. I live with Matt at Georgia Southern. That's
pretty cool. So I did my student teaching at Lowndes, and this was 1997. And I know if you do the math, I should have been student teaching a year or two ahead of that. But I tried to enjoy my time in college. But I was on the staff. I was the scout team defensive coach for the varsity offense. So my job on the coaching staff for the Lowndes Vikings was to set up the scout team defense, which was I thought I was coaching in the NFL, by doing that. I thought I was the most important job on the field. And, but it did teach me a lot because Coach Miller was great to me. He let me sit in on all the staff meetings. He hooked me up with all the gear. I got to meet with all the assistant coaches. And at one time, during the summer, he gave me an opportunity I could move around and visit with each position coach. And I spent 2 weeks with each position coach just trying to learn because I didn't know anything. I mean, you probably remember that time where when you first started coaching and the light starts coming on a little bit, it's like, man, I wish I knew this when I played. You realize you start to learn what you didn't know and how much you didn't know. And so it was just a great experience.
Well, you got to hang out with Harold Brantley.
Oh, Harold Brantley, Dipper Davis, Randy Hill, and Norman Saines was my mentor teacher. He coached the running backs, and he was a Valdosta guy, and he also loved to hunt and fish. And so
you probably got to go to the Little House.
I got to go. Oh gosh, yeah.
I've been to the Little House.
Yeah, there was one because Milt would have these Christmas parties.
Yes, he did.
And
you kill it, we'll grill it.
Holy cow. Some of the things, I thought, okay, this is what this is going to be like for the next 30 years. Because
when Milt and Griff and Coach Pilcher and all of them would get together when we were young coaches, you were like, this is what it's going to be like. We're going to get together with guys and we're going to coach together and against each other for the next 30 years and raise our kids together. And that's not what ended up happening.
Right.
To us, that's how we thought it was.
But I thought this is going to be the life. It was like great football and great fellowship.
I was down there the year. I went down there and he put me in charge, helping them with the big bonfire. And it was the year that he had thrown the chain on his chainsaw and it came off and got him in the face.
Okay.
And Coach Goff had come down there, and so I met Ray Goff, and I was like, "What's he doing here?" And they're like, "Well, he's from Moultrie, and he knows everybody." And then, Coach Hightower was there; he was still living, and Dan Pitts was still there. So they're standing out on the dock behind Milt's house, smoking a pipe, just talking. And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's Coach Hightower and Dan and Coach Pitts." Oh my God. I mean, it was just like a who's who of legends. And then the Valdosta staff would come over there. Coach O'Brien and them would be over there everybody would be at the Christmas party.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was impressive. And that had a big impression on me. And I wanted to obviously I wanted to stay in Valdosta. I would love to have stayed at Lowndes. That was easier said than done because, those guys, those big programs, they had their choice of coaches at that time, and they probably weren't going to hire a first-year guy. But that was a fall semester. So I graduated, in January, February, or December, January, when all the coaching hires are going on. And Tim Glanton is the receivers coach at Tift County, and he took the job at Brooks County.
Snake.
That's right, old Snake, Kim Burnett. So there's a job at Tift. There's an opening that Glanton left behind. So I apply and I go interview, and they hire me, and it's just to finish out the year. And man, they did me right. They gave me all health classes, right? So, like, okay, new guy, we're going to rearrange the schedule. He's going to teach all health, and which was fine because I didn't care. I needed a job.
You got to eat.
They got to eat. That's right. That was old Goolsby's dad. You plan on eating next year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we were living in Valdosta. My wife was still in school. And so I was making like a 45-minute trip to go teach health class all day. And Charles Winslet was the head coach. And Tift had just played for the state championship. And they were in the region with us at Lowndes. But then they went on, I think they lost to Parkview maybe that year.
Yeah, that was the year they lost to Parkview.
And but gosh, you felt like, okay, this would be a pretty good place too, right? Very successful. And so I met with Coach Winslet, and he offered me soccer and softball. And I thought, well, no, I didn't get into this, coach soccer and softball. This is 1997. Soccer wasn't as big. I mean, soccer's big at our school now, but I didn't know anything about soccer, and I didn't want to coach softball. I wanted to coach football in the fall. So there was a guy on the staff that I had befriended. He was real good to me, Ross Worsham. And Ross was from Mitchell Baker, played at Southern, was on the staff at Lowndes. And Ross hooked me up with a guy named Jim Morrell. And Jim Morrell was the head coach at Hawkinsville at the time. And so I went and interviewed. It was for a PE job, and it was for a football job, football and baseball. And Jim offered me the job, but I had to get a CDL. And so I wish they still made young coaches get CDLs these days. But so I got my CDL, and I got hired, and I was the middle school O-line and D-line coach. And I would just sit in the press box on Friday nights. And I coached baseball with a guy named Bob Owsley. He was awesome, man. Yeah. He was a great.
Yeah, he ended up being pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. So that spring, I'm driving from Valdosta to Tift to go teach. Driving from Tifton to Hawkinsville for spring practice, and then from Hawkinsville back to Valdosta because that's where we lived. Because my wife was still in school, and then do it all over again. And then finally, so that was kind of crazy. But then finally that summer, we were all finished with school, and so we moved to Hawkinsville. So we did that a year. That was, I tell you, man, and you live there now. I loved Hawkinsville. Lewis Fowler was awesome to us because we didn't have any kids, and my wife, she's not much of a cook, and of course we, newlyweds, so not a lot of good meals like you can get at the steakhouse.
No, the steakhouse is a freaking institution.
Yes, but I coached middle school O-line and D-line, and I was learning on the fly. And I got to sit in the press box, and Sunday meetings, I would just go and sit and listen. I could keep my mouth shut because I was trying to learn. And we didn't make the playoffs that year. I think we were 5-5 or 4-6 or something like that. But man, I love that. Baseball in the spring with Coach Owsley, and had a good season there, and just learned a lot from both of those guys, Morrell and Owsley. And so anyway, at the end of, I don't know, sometime January, February, Morrell takes the job at Harris County. And I just bought a house. And back then I certainly didn't know then what I know now. And buying and selling houses were like, we make a joke about it. I think my wife and I bought and sold about 10 different houses, because of coaching moves.
Good Lord.
I would, yeah, I'm trying not to do that now. But Morrell took the job at Harris County, and it had asked me to go with him, and offered me a chance to be a varsity football coach. And I just thought, man, here I am. I'm going into year 2 as a coach, and I thought my career was taking off. Of course, I didn't know Harris County, how bad they had been for how long. Now there's some great people over there, and things have changed a lot since when we first got there, and they've done pretty well for themselves lately. But yeah, it was bad, but I took advantage of it, and went over there, and hindsight's 2020. Lee Campbell was coming in, and I met with Lee, and he had asked me to stay. And, if I had stayed, I probably would have been a part of 2 state championships. Yeah. And that would have been awesome. But I didn't. And I went with Jim, and I was a varsity football coach, and, I probably wasn't, I know I wasn't ready. But I was the offensive line coach, and, I was not very good at it. And at that time we were coaching both sides of the ball. So I was coaching O-line and D-line, and Harris County had struggled, but we had some really good coaches on staff. He hired Jeremy Williams. I don't know if you ever knew J-Dub, but what an awesome man. Yeah. And really, really smart football coach. He hired Jeremy to be our defense coordinator, and then another guy on staff named Mark Gilreath, and Mark was our head baseball coach. And that's one of the best coaches I've ever been around. But we struggled early. The first year was tough, and it was a lot of changing the mindset and trying to get the weight room like it needed to be. And so I think maybe we went 3-7 or something that first year. But then the second year, our kids were getting stronger, and things, buying in, and things were, going in the right direction. And Chris, I had not made the playoffs in 27 years, and we made the playoffs.
Ooh,
and beat Manchester, and that was like 2 of the biggest hurdles for that little school at the time. And so everybody was excited. We were going into year 3, and Jim had given me the title of offensive coordinator. Now he ran the offense, and which was fine because I was still trying to figure out how to coach offensive line. But going into year 3, we ran into some big challenges, and we had some kids quit on us, and just things didn't work out too well. And so Jim moved on, and but we had been hosting these weightlifting competitions, the Lee Murray that you and I were talking about earlier. So we were hosting the Lee Murray area competitions, and a guy named Ron Beecham, who was at Northgate, was bringing his team down there and competing. And he and I had become friends, and it just so happened, this is going into 2002, that he was looking for an offensive line coach and a strength coach. And it was good timing because Morrell was moving on, and I didn't really know. They were hiring some guy. I think he had been a helicopter pilot or something, is what I'd heard, and I never met with him. So I don't know, but I thought this, I was starting to kind of figure things out, and so I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to move on and kind of start over again. And so Coach Beecham was at Northgate, offered me a position, offered my wife a position. So we were both going to school there to teach. We have one daughter, and she was just born. And so it was really like, all right, and again, we had just bought a house, so we had to sell a house. We'd only been in it 9 months. Because the first 2 years we were renting, and because I thought, maybe that's the right thing to do. And then in year 3, after we made the playoffs, we thought everything was going well, so we bought a house. But anyway, so we were selling that house, moving to Northgate, moving to Noonan, and man, just good folks and good coaching staff. There was a couple of old heads on that staff, Bill Lucky, and I know you know Casey. Bill, Coach Lucky, and Casey Smith is on that staff, and man, I felt like, I was kind of getting closer to what that lounge staff was like, where I'm surrounded by, more. Like I felt like I'd been around some good coaches, but I felt like we had a staff of really good coaches, veteran type coaches, and so I was offensive line coach and strength coach, and Coach Beecham let me do my thing in the weight room, and I thought we were doing some pretty good stuff and getting results. Football, they had gone from AA to 4A in 1 year to the next. So they had jumped 2 classifications, and I think they had gone quarterfinals, the year before, and then, man, we were not ready for that 2 classification jump.
Well, that region was rough. I was at Lithia Springs when you were at Northgate. We were all in the same region. You had Woodward Academy, Creekside when Eric Berry was there, Villa Rica, and not Whitewater, Sandy Creek when friggin' Calvin Johnson was there. I mean, there were some people in that region that were friggin' Douglas County.
Douglas County. I think there was a year where, I don't know if this all lines up exactly, but looking back, how it feels like it did. It was like we played Westlake, Cam Newton, Eric Berry at Creekside, the Dobbs kid at Douglas County. Mm-hmm. We played Central Carroll in a non-region game. I think their kid signed with West Georgia. I don't know. I don't remember who. It just felt like every week we were playing somebody that had a college quarterback, and But yeah, that was a challenge for us, and made the playoffs a couple of times, but we always hovered around 500. And after 2 years, Coach Beecham retired, and then Coach Lucky took over, which was fun. Lucky was, Chris, you won't believe this, Lucky was on our staff at Whitewater this year.
Really?
It was his 50th year of coaching.
Well, he invented the 3-3 mile.
Oh yeah. And his favorite stunt was double blood.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, Coach Lucky took over, and everybody was excited because he was such a favorite of the staff. He was kind of the big brother. If Beecham was mad about something, you kind of went to Lucky to get it worked out, kind of a deal. So
I remember seeing the mamas walking around with shirts that said "Feeling Lucky."
Yeah.
I was like, that's Justin. He had that high voice. I mean, I love Coach Lucky. He's one of my favorite
he's awesome.
humans ever.
He would be high stepping and high voicing and pointing his finger and wearing that bucket hat that swallowed up his bald head. He was a lot of fun. And so after 5 years total, so Beecham was 2 and then retired, and then Coach Lucky was the head coach for 3 years. This is going into 2007. I had no idea what I was doing, but I thought I was ready to be a head coach. I had been the offensive coordinator from the second year on at Northgate. I wasn't the first year, but Coach Beecham promoted me in the second year. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying hard. And in 2007, Heritage-Conyers opened. And I didn't know anything. I didn't even know where Conyers was on the map. But I'm sure you remember the old Georgia Varsity Sports Mint. It was probably you that was posting these jobs. But I had seen where that job was open. And so my wife and I drove to Conyers and looked around. This was like a weekend, because I knew nobody would be at the school. And we looked around the campus and we drove around the town. And I don't know what made me think, you need to apply here. But God's always got a plan, right? So I applied, and then I started doing some digging, and I realized that the athletic director, his name was Chuck Landy, one of the greatest men I've ever known, was friends with Coach Miller. So I called Coach Miller and asked if he would make a phone call for me and put in a good word. And Coach Landy tells me that that's what got my foot. That's the only thing because my resume wasn't that impressive. But that's what got me in the door. That's what got me an interview. It was a favor to Coach Miller because he had thought so much about him. And Coach Landy had spent some time at Lowndes in the past. But I interviewed. I got the job. Had no idea what I was doing. I knew I needed to hire some coaches. I needed to meet with the staff, meet with the players, and all that. And so this was 2007, and we were looking at moving, and I don't remember what housing bubble it was at the time, but we had been in our house for about 5 years at this point, and we couldn't sell it for what we still owed on it. And so my wife and I were thinking, this is, I'll commute a year, and this was about a 60-mile commute from where we were living in Noonan. And so 1 year became 6. 1 year turned into 6. Well, part of that was my wife was a competition cheerleading coach at Northgate. And then that first year that I was at Heritage, she won the state championship at Northgate. And then she went on to win 4 more consecutive. So she won 5 consecutive state championships. So she didn't, after the first one, she didn't want to leave. And so it became a deal where I'll commute and she'll stay there. But anyway, the football side of that at Heritage was a struggle. It was one of those deals where, there's a reason the job was open. They had not been very good. I think they had won 3 total games in the 2 previous years, and that's kind of the way things go. There's a reason big name guys weren't putting in for it, and so anyway, I got lucky, I think, and got the job. But I was really blessed to hire some young guys because that was about all you could get to come over there at the time was, new young coaches that were trying to establish themselves. But turned out I got lucky on a few and got some really good ones. And then we had some really good players start to come through. And, we didn't make the playoffs until year 4. But I don't know. I can't remember. They had not made the playoffs. I think they had made the playoffs 3 times in their 36 years. something like that. And then we made the playoffs. Year 4, we go 7-3, and we get to play Marist in the first round.
Congratulations.
Yes. Yeah. Here's your reward. Go play Marist. And at the time they had that crazy streak of consecutive home playoff victories. But gosh, what was so frustrating, Chris, was that 2 of their kids, their starting quarterback and a starting offensive lineman, lived in our district. And when they were 8th graders, I was picking them up and bringing them to our place for workouts. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But we go over there and, gosh, we played hard. We were fairly competitive. And they ended up beating us. But I felt like we learned a lot from it. And then going into year 5, we had a lot of kids coming back, and won the school's first region championship. This was 2011. Won the school's first region championship. I think it was the first time. We were 10-2 was our final record, but I think it was the first region championship they had won. I think they won one since, but and I'm not great at storytelling, but we played Rome in the first round of the playoffs, and it's a home game, and our defense was really good, and offensively we were just okay. And we've got the ball, and it's we're on the plus side of the field, and it's 4th down, and I decided to call a fake punt, and which was boneheaded. Of course, if it worked, the guy's standing wide open in the end zone. But now I say on the plus side, we were like the plus 45 or something, and we should have just punted them deep because we were playing great defense. But in my mind, we'll go for it. Because we are good on defense. Of course, everybody disagreed. And the fake punt almost got returned for a touchdown. And we were winning. At the time, we were winning the game 3-0. And so I about blew that. We ended up winning that game. And in round 2, we're going to get Ware County. And us and our coaches, we're talking. And we hadn't even watched film on Ware yet, but we're thinking in our minds, Ware's got to come all the way to Conyers, and we're more physical, and we'll just be the better team. And we're in the wing tee, and they won't know, they won't be disciplined and all that stuff. And after we beat them, we're going to go play Lovejoy. We'll probably beat them, and then we'll be in the semifinals. And we had it all mapped out, right? Ware County came out. This was Ed Dudley Ware County team, and they beat the dog stew out of us. And they're doing it with kids that are playing both ways. And at the time, we were trying not to play kids both ways. It's just 2 totally different mentalities. It's that South Georgia, get after it, physical, just beat you to death.
And swamp things are different.
And swamp things are different. And it was almost comical how bad it was, because we really did. We had it mapped out. Like, okay, they got to travel. We're going to beat them. Then we're going to go play Lovejoy, and the wing tee's going to screw them all up. And then we're going to be in the semifinals, and we don't know who we're playing there, but we'll be okay. That's how good we are. Yeah. And we just got pummeled and deserved to be pummeled. And then they go play Lovejoy, and Lovejoy put the thing on them the following week. And it's like, holy cow, we're not near as good as we thought we were, because the team that just beat the stew out of us just got the stew beat out of them. So there was some good lessons learned throughout that. And then in year 6 for me, pretty decent team. We ended up going 8-3. We lost in the first round to Alatoona, and but it was the winningest 4-year span in the school's history. 3 consecutive playoff appearances when they had only made it 3 times in 36 years. Region championship, 10-win season, a lot of good things, and a lot of good players. We had some kids go off to play. We still have one playing in the CFL. But kids go play college and still keep in touch. with a couple of those kids and some of those families. So there were some good relationships built there. And, but after that, last year, that 2012, my daughter was starting to enter middle school, and there were a couple of things factoring into my move. I went to Rica from Heritage, and Rica was the athletic director and the head football coach position. And being an athletic director was something I thought that I'd always wanted to do. So I pursued that. Plus, it was a chance to somewhat be closer to Noonan because my daughter was, at that point, Chris, we had already decided that we weren't going to move our daughter because we knew all our friends, we knew their parents and families. And that was plus my wife had won all the state championships. So that was like, well, this is probably best for everybody to stay, and I'll just drive.
Right.
And so 2012, I go to Rica, and I thought I was this big bad coach coming from Conyers, and I was going to be the athletic director, and so I was really excited. And man, I'll tell you, that's a gig that's tough. Being the AD and the head, I don't know how those guys did it years ago. I guess they didn't have so many sports to keep up with, but I wasn't very good. I was terrible. Probably because I wasn't willing to put the time in. My daughter was playing, soccer and cheer and doing all those things, and so I was like, well, I'm going to go watch that. Somebody else can go watch, this softball game or whatever. So I wasn't very good at being the athletic director because I just wasn't willing to give up my time like that. Because I was for football, so I busted my tail for football. But the athletic director part, that was a struggle for me. And but we had guys. I think David Norwood, and I know you had spent some time there listening to one of your podcasts. I know they had moved you over there. Carroll County did, but Carroll County is a different place, and Rica is definitely a unique place. Again, I think they had been 5-5. Mike Velour, heck of a football coach, had been the head coach prior, and I don't know how many years he was there, but when I came in, a lot of good things were in place. He had set up Tommy Gilstrap. I don't know if you know him. He's
Strap.
Gosh, I'm telling you now, that guy, he was so good to me, and he knew he wasn't going to stay. He knew he wasn't going to return. But he and I taught football weight training together the entire second semester, and he was so good to me in terms of how things had been going, how they had done them, and so I was, taking notes and taking the things I liked, and Gilstrap had done a great job, and he had a good relationship with those kids, and so I just tried to continue with those guys. Even though they had been there a short time, I was going to try to continue what they had started. And I'm gonna tell you what, I drank the Kool-Aid, and I got out of what I knew as an offense, and I got away from coaching a position. I was trying to take that CEO role of being a head coach, and I didn't coach a position. And we had a coordinator, and we were going to run the Tony Franklin, and I didn't know anything. I still don't know zone blocking. And I still don't know the air raid, but we did it for 3 years, and we weren't very good. And I felt like I was just a student. I was a glorified student manager because I didn't coach anything, and I was just kind of overlooking everything. So that was a struggle for me. After that, I told myself I'll never not coach a position. Even if I'm the head coach, I still want to. I love kids. I love coaching ball, and I think coaching a position helps me build relationships better with the kids. I'm just not good at that CEO role and just overseeing everything. I have to have my hands on it. So, but I'm not a micromanager, and it may sound like I'm contradicting myself, but anyway, Rica, we went 5-5. And in the third year, we had gone to FCA padded camp at West Georgia. And we had gotten back. One of my coaches had been saved, and he said that he wanted to be baptized in the stadium. And so I said, yeah, man, that sounds a great idea. So we had reached out to, because we had multiple churches that were pretty invested in our program. So we reached out to a couple of them, said, hey, this is what we're doing. Love for you guys to come be a part of it. And so we set up the old water trough in the end zone after practice one day. And we get all these people to show. I mean, we had more people show up than we had planned. We were just invited a couple of people, but a bunch of people showed up. And then so the coach got baptized, and then we had 31 kids. Well, it had been videoed and put on YouTube or something. I don't know. And then it goes viral. And then we're on Fox News. And so we were getting a lot of attention for that. And it's funny, going into that season, I had, because we had been 2-8 the year before, which was, I think it was the worst season I'd ever been a part of. But the principal called me in, and they gave me this ultimatum that Directors Cup points, make the playoffs, all these things that we had to meet. And so I said, okay, not a problem. And sure enough, we met them all, made the playoffs. I'd gone back to coach. We went back to the wing tee. I was coaching a position. Not that I'm the difference in anything, but I just felt like, we needed to. I needed to do it my way.
Go back to what you know.
And that's right. Go back to what I know and be who I am, and not try to, just forget about everything. Coach ball, do it the way I know how to do it, the way that it's worked for me in the past. And sure enough, we met all those things and made the playoffs. We got beat by Arabian Mountain in the first round. And then that Thanksgiving, I got called in, and basically I was let go, which was probably a blessing because I'm too hard-headed to quit on anything. And because it was one of those situations where it kind of pissed me off. And it was like, okay, I'll show you, and I'll prove to you that, I can do this. So, so I wasn't going to quit. But they let me go. And blessing in disguise. And I went and interviewed with Mike McDonald at Noonan because I thought, okay, daughter's going to be in high school. There's an opening at Noonan. Maybe there's a chance I can, catch on there, and I'll be home again, basically. And so I go interview with Mike. I love Mike. He's an awesome guy. Just retired. And he offers me the job, and about the day, I don't know, a couple of days in between interviewing and him offering me the position, Union Grove opened up, and Mike had been at Union Grove. And so when we're talking and he offered me the job, I just asked him, I said, Mike, if you don't mind, just let me go. I just want to go see, what this looks like. And he, of course, being the great guy that he is, he did not mind at all. So I go over there. The facilities look nice. I mean, it's Henry County, so everything was at that time was still fairly new looking, and they do a good job taking care of their facilities over there. And so again, it was a situation where I think they were 1-9, 2-8, or something, maybe two back-to-back 1-9s or something. It had been pretty bad. And so I interview. They offer me a job. I take it. And here I am commuting again. I'm driving from Noonan to McDonough. And, but it's good people. The school academically was a good place. We didn't have very many athletes, but we had kids that were tryharders. And, gosh, it was that first year. This was 2017. Great kids, but that was the that was the softest bunch of football players I'd ever been around. And it was, I felt like I was banging my head against the wall all the time. But they kept working. They got better. And year 2, we went 6-4. And year 3, we went 7-3. So we kept making progress and having fun. And had couple of kids that got to go play at the next level. Was able to hire some guys that I enjoyed working with. But then in 20, Whitewater opened. And my time at Northgate, and we had played Whitewater when I was at Union Grove. So I had always kind of kept my eye on, and I think we went over there to scout somebody. We didn't scout Whitewater. We were scouting somebody else that they were playing one time. And I just thought, man, what a great community. Seems like a great school. They've had success in football. They're successful in a lot of sports. I just thought, man, if there was any way I could get to that spot right there, that's close enough to home, I would never leave again. I would never look for anything again. And so fortunately, they were kind of looking for a wing tee guy. And so it just happened to work in my favor. I thought the interview went well. They offered me the position. I took it. And they bring me in January. This is January of 20. And I'm there for 7 weeks, 10 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. And then everything shuts down, right? And so I'm trying to put together, I retained most of the coaches because there were some sharp guys on the staff. And but we're trying to put together an install plan for offense. I was keeping the defensive coordinator, didn't want anything to change there. And so we're doing Zoom meetings for spring practice. And we're doing like an hour in offense, send a link, all the players log in, take roll. Here's how we're going to install the offense. They had a PowerPoint on Zoom that we went through all of it. Then we do an hour on defense, and I jump in with the defensive staff while they were teaching the kids. And that was a very interesting, but we did 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. I don't know how we did it, but we made it through. And then we got to summer and things were kind of opening back up, but that was the hardest summer ever. You probably talked about this with a bunch of guys, how we could bring 20 in at a time. And so we were bringing like 6 different groups of kids in 3 and 4 days a week in the summer. And that was just exhausting, but we made it work, man. And we ended up, I think we went 5-5 that first year, my first year here. And we made the playoffs, got to go play Woodward Academy. Again, there's your reward. Played them pretty competitive. It was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. And then, a lot of lessons learned, and we come back year 2. Everybody's second year of the system and kind of learning, and quarterback situation improved a little bit. We had a pretty good athlete there, and ended up going 11-2 and won the region and beat Stars Mill, which was a big deal because they had kind of been the big dog in the region. And I think they had won like 5 in a row over Whitewater at that point. And so won the region, played Ola in the first round, won that one, played Lithia in the second round, won that one. Then we got Creekside in the third round. And man, I want to tell you that they were way better than us, but we had a situation. We're coming off the -1, and it was kind of like we were beating them. They were good on defense. And so, but we ran trap coming out of the end zone, and it bust. And I know you've seen trap enough times, man. When it hits clean, it's like a bullet coming out of there. And we had this kid that could fly, and he hit it, and the freaking umpire is standing. And I don't know why they put the heavyset guy at umpire. He couldn't move. But the friggin' umpire, he can't get out of it. Oh, worse. He causes a fumble.
Oh, no.
Our kid is trying to cut off of him. And, you know how kids are. Sometimes that ball gets away when they stick their foot in the ground. So the ball got away from him. The umpire calls a fumble. They recover, score. And it was like, it was just deflation. You know, it just deflated us the rest of the way. And and then year 3, I'm going to tell you, I've never been a part of a state championship. I know my very first year we were at Lowndes, those coaches felt like we had a roster to win the state championship. And then in 2022 here, I felt like we had a roster that had the potential to do that. You know, of course, you got to stay healthy. Everything's got to go the right way. But gosh, we had a good season, 8-2. We had one that got away from us that we felt like we should not have lost. We opened with East Coweta, and that was our first loss, and then we won. I guess 8 of the next 9 or something like that. But anyway, we lost a game we felt like we shouldn't have lost. We end up tied for second in the region, and because of the tiebreakers that we had set up, there was a 3-way tie. So because of the tiebreakers, we ended up being the 4 seed. So here's your reward: go play Benedictine on the road. And anyway, they were defending state champs, and then they won the state championship. But again, it was one of those deals where it's tied in the third quarter, and we're toe to toe with them. And I thought this is the roster that could do it. And then we had some things not go our way, and that kind of snowballed on us in the fourth. But it's been fun, man. I love it. I work with some great guys. Our kids are so much fun. My wife is at Whitewater now. She's in year 3, and she's already won a state championship in cheerleading at Whitewater. So she is the Coach Frazier. I'm just a Coach Frazier.
I was about to say, apparently she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. She's won 10 of those things. It's ridiculous. But yeah, we're all happy. My wife, my daughter is graduating this semester, and she's going to teach and coach, and we're going to try to get her hooked up over there. And her fiance, future son-in-law, is going to teach and coach. And I tried talking them both out of it, but they wouldn't listen.
Jeez.
And
what are they
yeah, exactly. So he's going to be on our coaching staff, and so I don't know, man.
I mean, I hate to say that, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm so close to the end now that I say, man, I'd hate to be going into it now.
Yeah, I kind of think that too.
You know?
So my mother is a teacher, or is obviously retired, but my mother was a teacher, and I don't really ever remember her steering me away from it. And I've never seriously tried to steer my daughter away, but you're right. It's like I'm so close as well, and I think I don't know if I could. Sometimes I do, I don't have any regrets, but. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd do it all over again or not.
Well, just the direction that things are going in. I mean, I don't mean I still love the kids, and
oh yeah,
all that. I just mean from that other standpoint of where it looks like things may be going and how things are now compared to how they were when we got started. I couldn't imagine coming in now, year 1, where it's the way it is. Knowing that you got 29 more of these jokers you got to do. It'd be rough.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, man, I've been blessed, and coaching is brought, a lot of connections, a lot of relationships that have been pretty special. And
well, I know how important your faith is to you too, and that's something that you've alluded to, and something that you've gotten to share. You were talking about going to play an FCA golf tournament later this week. I know FCA is something that's been a big part of your career as well. Yeah.
That's it's just a lot of people have poured into me, and hopefully I can be that to others. It's just because I know you. I've heard you speak, and I feel like I just through your podcast and just following you. I feel like investing in young people, there is no greater reward, because that's I needed that. There were certainly coaches and other adults throughout my life, and even as an adult man, that just relationships they mean so much, and it's just special that we get a chance to do that. And I know you and I were talking about some stories before we came on about some of the kids that that we teach that don't, and they're not even athletes. There's relationships at school with kids now that they don't play any sports, but they love to talk, and they love to, they just watch you, and and you're listen, and they're just trying to learn and grow up, and you just want to help them.
Yeah, and what's funny to me, it probably won't be funny to anybody else. People that know me, it'll be hilarious. But being a spectrum person like I am, and being the furthest thing away from an emotional person, somebody that you would go to for empathy, things like that, I cannot tell you how many children I'm their person.
Yeah,
and
I bet you are,
and I love it, and I'm still not. I'm still not going to make them feel better about themselves from a emotional support, or at least in my mind. I'm not
right.
a come here, buddy, and let me tell me all about. I'm not that. I'm not that guy.
Right,
I'm not that person in my home. I'm not like that with the people I live with. I'm just not wired that way. And
right.
And it's just amazing that you still draw them to you. I don't know if it's the attention, or if it's somebody they can listen to, or if they just like blunt honesty. I mean, I don't know what it is, but you're right. There is something to be said to get to be somebody's person.
Right.
That doesn't have anybody else. Because for a lot of these kids, we might be the only adult they see all day.
That's right.
That actually spends time with them and isn't trying to hurt them, or, it means ill towards them, or just trying to, doesn't have their best interests at heart. Because regardless of what most people think, I don't want nothing but the best for them. I want them to cure cancer so I can start smoking again. and I believe, and I'm dead. And I tell them that. I'm not even joking, because I actually used to enjoy smoking a cigarette, which I quit, 16, 17 years ago. And I tell them that, I'm like, listen, y'all have got to be the ones that cure this and fix this and invent this so that I can enjoy what you invent, because my age group, we're done. We're out. We've done about all we're going to do. We've done all the damage we're going to do. So it's up to y'all. And it's the same way with young coaches. I carry on about youngins getting on my nerves, but, I just don't want them making the same mistakes we made. Buying 10 houses, or
that's right,
moving 35 times like I have, and, not making the best decisions as far as going to this job or going to that job or doing this or doing that. And I just don't want them to make those same, mistakes. And also I want them to understand how important, like you said, relationships are.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I'm seeing, I don't know that they value that as much as we did.
No, it's interesting, and you're probably going through this too. How, I used to be the young coach, and I would look to the others, to kind of see how they manage their families, manage their time, just anything I could learn from the older coaches. And now I kind of feel like I'm in that stage where I can kind of be a mentor. I'm not going to try to tell them how to live their lives or anything like that, but
no.
I do notice that I get asked a lot of questions, about just kind of life stuff and career, things. And so that's kind of neat to be able to pull from my experiences and share with them to, help them grow a little bit. But it's kind of it's a neat chapter to be in right now, to be in that place.
Well, Stacy Bell, who played for Coach Lucky at Hawkinsville, if it wasn't for Coach Bell, who I worked with at Worth County, my first diaper I ever changed was his youngest son. And it was because he had run out to go get dinner. And the two other children said, Coach Lamb, Kobe's got a poopy diaper and you got to change it. And I wasn't married yet. And I didn't know. I was like, oh my God, it took me like 3 diapers to get one clean one, because I was trying to scoop, use the diaper I didn't know what I was doing. But I mean, I was with them all the time. I was the young coach, the unmarried, I hung out, I babysat, but I learned from them. And you're right. I mean, that's what we did. So yeah, moving into that role where you're like, look, dude, just don't just try not to screw it up.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the best advice I can give you.
Oh man.
Don't screw it up. Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate you being on, and you're a testament to all of us that good guys do win. You've been a great person throughout your career. Like I said in the intro, you can't find anybody that'll say anything bad about Coach Frazier. And if you don't like some Chad Frazier, then there's a problem with you.
You just hadn't asked enough people. That's all.
Well, I appreciate you being on. And, as always, if you need anything in the world, if there's ever anything I can do, just let me know.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And thanks for what you do for coaches, man. It's appreciated. I know you probably don't get enough thanks and all, but people are watching and people observe and everybody knows, the good you're doing. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just want everybody to get to tell their story, Doctor. And I appreciate you telling yours tonight.
Enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir, man. Have a good night.
You too.